Hey everyone, welcome to Dallo Podcast, episode 128. This week we're going to be talking about the importance of a sequel, whether there should be a sequel, what a sequel ushers in, how to make a great sequel. All questions that come to us from my dad, who is back on the podcast tonight. Welcome back, Dad.
Glad to be back. Happy to be
Uh,
back, Howard.
yeah. So you posed this question, so let's get you to start it off as far as how you posed it to me. So that way we kind of get in the same framework of what we want to talk about tonight.
Well, it started when I was going back and reviewing some old movies and was watching the different sequels that come from them. And I was like, okay, some of these are cash grabs. Some of them are actually tried to be a meaningful sequel to carry the story forward. Um, and it got me thinking about what is the responsibility of a sequel. Is a sequel meant to expand on the story without destroying what went before, or is it just to provide a new take? I really, and it was also okay. What's the difference between a sequel and a remake or a reboot or a those type of things? Because it seems that's all that's happening in Hollywood. And then what's the danger of doing a prequel? When we see these prequels, they go back, they do something, and then they ruin what made the original film so memorable and classic. So I was just like, I sent that message to you, as a topic for you guys to discuss. Um, you go back and you look at things like Friday 13th, you look at Scream, look at Nightmare on Elm Street, and then like Star Wars. And I've just been watching a lot of old movies, and then the what came before afterward, Jaws. I went back and watched all the Jaws films, and it seemed like with Jaws, the second one wasn't so much as a cash grab, but it was trying to find a way to carry that franchise forward by introducing a mother shark who had a baby shark so that we get her fighting them when she gets electrocuted, right? She has gives birth, which but those are in the novelization. We never see that in the film, so it comes across as a cash grab, instead of carrying creating a way for the franchise. So then that left them nowhere to go with the third one. So then we get the gimmick, the 3D, and it basically borrows from the second book because there are two sharks in the third one. Um, but and then when we get to see and follow the two sons, but by the time we get four, they've erased all that, you know. Uh it's just crazy. I was like, okay, what was the point of that? At least with like Star Trek, those sequels, they carried the story forward. They were actually added to the mythos. They didn't destroy what came before. So I just want to throw that out to you guys, and I'd like to see what you guys think. I like Planet of the Apes. I watched all the Planet of the Apes films, even went to the Tim Burton, and I was like, okay, well, Tim Burton's was a retelling for a newer generation, right? But nobody liked it because it had Tim Burton's style of things. People were, yeah, it either didn't catch on with younger audiences, and then the people who love the original hated it because it changed everything so much. Um, I thought if you're going to do a remake of Planet of the Apes, go back to the original source material in the book and do it where they land on another planet. It's not Earth, and it's a planet with apes where we are technologically advanced. And what would that be like? to find that mankind is not, you go to another planet, there's not a war, it has nothing to do with that. It's just primates evolved instead of mankind evolving off of primates. Um, the and then returning to Earth and then finding that, because it took them, it was near Alpha Centauri, it took them 2 years at almost near light speed. And the way they work it out in the book is they travel at ever incrementing speeds so that they're constantly going faster and faster and faster. And then once they get to a halfway point, they have to slow down and increment speeds. So they had to be, using retros to slow down so when they got to the planet, they wouldn't overshoot it. Well, we know about time displacement when you're traveling at speeds like that. When they went on the journey, they knew that when they came home that everything that existed before would be different, and that this was a generational flight for them, but only for the people on Earth. For the people on the ship, it was just one trip for them. But
Yeah.
on Earth, it was generational. Generations had to track them. When they got back to Earth, it was just like the planet they just left. I love that. I thought, okay, that, you go back to the source material for it. But, they didn't. They gave us what Tim Burton wanted to give us, and it was a big story that was told too quickly, and we didn't get enough of it. It should have been at least three movies, you
Yeah.
know.
So what do with the basis of what Dad's saying, what are your guys' take on like what makes a great sequel? Um, what resonates to your mind?
Something that advances the original idea of the story. It has to be able to bring something to the table. You know, Unfortunately, the cash grab is the way most studios have to run now because they're out of ideas, and it's like Vince brought up. Uh, Back in the day, you'd have a great first movie, Halloween, Friday the 13th, things like that, and then either they would be spaced out as the sequels, or they cranked them out, and for a while, the third one of every sequel was 3D because that was suddenly the thing again, and that just, in Halloween's sake, that was absolutely bottom of the barrel, scraping out the corners of the bottom of the barrel, trying to get something relevant and linking it by name only. And it was, if that's one of the things where, you want to go back in time and just say, no, don't do that. You know, don't do that. That's no, go to your room. But
But see, that I understand that, but Carpenter finished his story with the second one. He never
yes,
intended
that
for
it's
Michael to go beyond. And so
exactly.
he was like, okay, if I want to keep my franchise going, let's take stories that appear in Halloween and make Halloween the focal point. And Michael is story, he's gone. So every year we can produce a movie, we'll produce it, a director will make it, and it's about something that happens on Halloween. And so I really like the idea of going back to telling a druid story where a wizard is so angry with society that he decides to punish society by killing the children,
Yeah. On a global
and
scale.
on a global scale.
Yeah.
But the audience tends to tie with a certain character, and that's what they want, and that's why Jaws got hurt, because there's only so many Jaws stories you can tell.
Yeah.
People want it to be about a shark. Jurassic Park had a little bit more of a leeway, but even with Jurassic Park 2, they only 15 minutes of the movie are the
Yeah.
book. And I
Of Lost
love
yeah,
this.
Lost World, yeah.
I love
Well,
Lost World more than I like Jurassic Park.
well, in that same token, you think about what was good about Friday the 13th was you had Pamela Voorhees as the first villain, and then Jason in the second. It
Yeah.
it transitioned the story. It didn't like go, oh, Pamela Voorhees is back again. It played up more on the whole thing of like, well, we talked about the spirit of Jason. We saw him as a little boy come up out of the water, but we don't know if it was true because of the way it ended and then how the beginning of the second one started. But think about like how like Lethal Weapon with even Die Hard, both those movies, even though Die Hard constantly did the whole Die Hard over with each of its sequels, at least Lethal Weapon was original enough that it had a different story going on. And you didn't have the whole situation where Riggs is dealing with the fact that he wants to commit suicide. Sorry, wants to Minecraft himself. So, yeah, I there's, but then you look at Star Wars, right? You know, you have the first original trilogy, you have the prequels, even though they kind of followed a similar beat to A New Hope with the Phantom Menace. But when you look at how close The Force Awakens is to A New Hope, it's like they didn't even try. And that's
Yeah.
an example of them not like understanding the lore and the world that had been established and being able to tell a good story because they couldn't even come up with a new villain. They were like, okay, we're just going to take stormtroopers and they're going to call them the First Order. And it's like, what are you doing? But
Right.
I
okay, we
mean,
get
they're
to
everyone's
David.
always scared about marketability, right? Like, I mean, that's what happened to Halloween. That's what we're talking about. It's like we need something to be able to market our sequels. Because, yeah, cash grabbing is bad, but at the end of the day, the movies have to make cash at the, to
They have to make money
right.
to, to keep
Um,
the series going on. Now, I want
yeah.
to go back to something before you continue because that's an important thing. But we were talking about Friday 13th. Friday the 13th 3 was not just about 3D as a gimmick. They gave us everything that would go forward with that series. The hockey mask came from that.
Yes.
The Jason coming back to life, you can't kill him. Everything that went forward from there came from that third movie.
Yeah.
That's where everything solidified and what gave us the Friday the 13th series. So sometimes a sequel will give you the foundation that the others missed. And then and from that point on, it goes, okay, I know what I am now. I know where to go from it. Just like the uh, Nightmare on Elm Street. One was
Yeah.
fantastic. It was
But
unique. It was
But
new.
by the time you get to three with Freddy, right, then he goes from being the really menacing character that he
Yep.
is in the first one to the clown, right? That's when it's three is where you get it's prime time, right? Like all that
Yeah.
Yeah.
stuff
And
is
then you
where
get
all
all
of
the
us.
cool stories after that. Dream Warrior, all of those things. At least we had a couple of really great films. You know, it got
So
bad towards the
okay,
end, but
but so what about things like I mean in the same spirit as Nightmare, right? Let's think about Evil Dead, right? Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 are for all intents and purposes the exact same movie, but one of them has ratcheted up the humor, really high up and those movies we look back on and we say, yeah, this is great, right? This is fantastic. Love Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, where all that went with Ash. We love the Nightmare on Elm Street movies and how crazy and quirky and everything Freddy is, but how often do if we're honest with ourselves, in today's day and age, with today's climate of movies, if we were watching a movie that did such a hard tonal shift from one to two, would we all be on board the way that we were with like the Evil Dead series and things like that, right? Like, I mean, it seems like there's always such it's one of the comments. I know we've probably made it in some of our reviews of things of like the tone problem that comes up in movies, and yet something like that where from one movie to the next, it's shifted way away from where it started out, and yet we're okay with it for whatever reason, right? Like I don't know. I just thinking about it like that. That's a maybe it's just nostalgia, right? Like back then, it's one of those things where we're so spoiled for riches when it comes to movies and the types of stories we can tell now and everything where as before it was just like yeah no this is entertaining in the same vein with these same characters that I'm willing to accept it and move forward with it, right? Even though it's very different from where we started, I'm still
Mm.
good with this because I guess you can still feel like where the spirit of it started, and this is kind of like a an odd evolution, but it works, right? Is that kind of the idea that we would think of
Yeah, I
trying to
mean,
ascribe to those?
you use Evil Dead, right, as a good example. Evil Dead, the first one came out almost what, 20 years before the second one. And they were like, okay, here's an old movie we did, basically a college film, and we lucked out on it. But they were wanting to do, there was going to be Evil Dead 2, which was going to be a retelling to reintroduce, to set up Army of Darkness, which Army of Darkness was supposed to be three films. And we never got it because he gave us two, which was a retelling to get new generation of audiences and bring people up to speed on it and the new style of film, because the first one had a lot of humor in it too,
It
but it
did,
was much a dark humor.
but it was a yeah. I mean, you
But
look at
it wasn't Evil Dead 2.
No, it wasn't. No, no,
no.
no, it wasn't smashing his head with
When like 20
plates
minutes of
and
the movie is him dealing with his hand, smashing stuff on the whole, with shooting the hand in the wall, and then him seeing all the blood, and then the animals on the walls and everything else start laughing. He's just completely lost his mind. Um, but yeah, even think about like RoboCop, right? You know, one and two are very tonally different.
Right.
They're not, it's not like you're even with like Terminator and Terminator 2, they're almost basically the same film, but one is more, it's
it's a
different.
linear storytelling
Right,
though.
it is.
It's telling a story that's going to keep going.
Correct. But that, and that,
RoboCop, I loved one and two because they felt progressive. It
yes.
felt like they were telling a story of, okay, this is how or origin film. Now we're going to see him years later. And three was like, what the hell?
Right.
What did I just
It
watch?
was a fascist state with like, why'd you kill Lewis? And what's going on here? Wait, there's samurai ninjas in this movie?
Right. It with two, it basically felt like, okay, RoboCop was introduced and he's out there. Now the other side is, how are we going to respond to this thing being out there? So
Mhm.
it gave you a different perspective and thus elevated the story. At least for me, it did. But like you said, like you said, when you get to three, it's like, it's like somebody took the last few pages and went, no, and just
Uh,
it just and
I mean, but that's the difference, right? Like what we were talking about earlier between a good sequel and a cash grab, which is okay, you're progressing the story, but even if you are progressing the story or doing something different with it, it's got to be good, right? Like there's still it still needs to have like good dialogue. And like effects need to be at least somewhat passable for the things that you're trying to get away with, and like all these little things that play into it because like you can have something absolutely amazing in terms of like construction, but then they come through and they edit it all to hell and they change up a bunch of stuff of it and it doesn't make any sense anymore. Now it's like it's a slog to get through as compared to something that's well written and well constructed and it's a good movie, right? I think that's where we're willing to give a pass on some of these movies um, because of the fact that it's still at the end of the day good. It doesn't have that kind of cheap exploitative kind of we're just doing this because we need to cash a check level of things, right? I think that's where it kind of comes down to is does this sequel exist because someone came up that had a vision, someone that came up that had an idea, someone that came up and had, a story to tell with these characters and this universe and whatever, right? And like, is it something worth telling? And that's where it kind of comes down to of with a lot of these, right? Same thing with a prequel, right? Can you do enough to make sense with what's there while not breaking it and do it smartly, do it smart enough to where you're not screwing up the whole thing, right?
or
Um,
insulting the existing
Yeah.
fan base.
Yeah. Like
Oh,
right.
I'm looking at you, Ridley Scott, and Disney with all
oh,
your alien
I
stuff that
have,
you've been doing lately. Because
I was going to bring that up.
I'm
yeah,
sorry, but
I
Alien and Aliens are a perfect couple film. They're like they are sequels. They transcend the story. They progress things. They bring in new lore within it, and it works. That didn't destroy what became before it, but also didn't destroy the process of it going forward.
Yeah, you
Right.
see
And
that
Alien,
lineage. You see that lineage. It feels like it's part of the original. I think sometimes it has to have like beats. Like we all love James Bond, right? Because we know what we're going to get. Every film is James Bond. It's got the beats, the familiarity. We know that universe. They didn't break it every time until we got to the Daniel Craig. And that was because they were going, okay, we've done just about everything we can do. We need a soft reboot. Let's go back and retell his origin and then go from there. Where they messed up was instead of, okay, we've now done these origin pieces, let's fall back in line to the movies where you can tell more future stories. They're like, oh no, you know what? Let's just kill him. Boom. All right, now we're gonna what? What are we gonna do? Are we gonna start over with an origin? Every time they do an origin piece, it's basically because they um of it's about the IP. I mean, there are certain movies now that won't get made because they can't tie it to an IP. You know,
Right.
Independence Day, complete ripoff of War of the Worlds. No matter what they say, it's War of the Worlds. The core beat there is the story of the war. Instead of a virus, it's a,
Peter virus.
a computer virus. It's aliens invading. It's um, and so none of. I mean, even when we get something original, it doesn't get made because they're like, oh well, how do we? How okay, we're gonna do this does this have legs? How many times can we retell the same story until we've got to reboot it again? And so there's a problem with Hollywood altogether, period.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
Um,
it's getting so bad now that they're working on sequels with unfinished scripts.
yep.
or
As
they're
Not
what?
getting
that
started.
they're running. Yeah, they start it and then they just make it up as they go, and it's
Yeah.
like
Oh,
they don't even know how well that's going to work by doing
right.
this.
And biggest example of that right now, Doomsday.
Yeah, Doomsday. Yeah.
I mean, they're still working on that damn script, and it's Doctor Doom. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Oh, okay. Hold on. And I just watched a video somebody put up, like it was a short, and it was about this guy going, and it was everybody who's done anything with Phase 4 Marvel, and how the fact that all of them go, well, I've never read the comic. Oh, they told us that we shouldn't research anything from the comic so that we could have good stories. So they
Yeah,
were just making shit up as they go, and it's
But
like you
that's
can't do
because
that.
what they learned from like what was it, phase two, which introduced Ant-Man and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Like Edgar Wright was writing that. He wanted to do a standalone story and he absolutely refused to do those little connective tissues because they were building a much larger universe. He wanted his to be a standalone story.
right.
You can't, and that's great. You get somebody who is going to tell you a unique, interesting story, but if it doesn't fit into a connective universe, then you've alienated your audience. That's one of the reasons why Fantastic Four was what it was. Let's do Fantastic Four, but we're going to put them in a pocket universe where we're not going to damage anything.
Hmm.
We don't have to explain, well, where the hell was the Fantastic Four during the Thanos stuff? We put them in a pocket universe. Now we're going to have this big cataclysmic event. We're going to bring them all together, and eventually, at the end of it, have Franklin create a whole new universe that's going to bring in mutants and all this stuff, and we get a do-over, but it's still part of the same story.
Same story.
You know,
Yeah.
it's what Abrams did with Star Trek.
Yeah,
He got to where they were like, okay, how many stories can we tell? So he's like, you know what? I got an idea. And I don't like everything Abrams does, but I think what he did with Star Trek was unique. He gave it where that if you wanted to tell stories from the original universe, you could because it still exists.
yeah.
But you now have this other universe where things are slightly off, slightly different, and you can tell all new stories. You know,
which is
you
which
can't
is
you can't go too far off because those things still exist in the universe, which is why we got the con in the second one.
yeah, the
Right.
Calvin
But
universe.
um,
Um,
it's still there, you know.
right, it doesn't mess with anything, right? It can give the writers of the original universe time to come up with a good story to go forward, and then continue on with this other thing. And that's where like I want to go back to aliens real quick because this is what spawned this conversation originally between me and Dad was what they were doing with Aliens Earth, and it's like I can't. I've only watched those first two episodes. I cannot stand like the fact that one they send child robots and they're not children. They're not the bodies of these androids are not or synthetics or whatever hybrids are not. They're not children, but their minds are and they haven't been conditioned fast enough. It's not like,
Right.
hey, tank, upload a program of combat and blah 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 from the Matrix into my head, and they're like ready to
Nope.
go. They sent kids into an environment with hostile aliens, and on top of that, I'm sorry, but the xenomorph in that show does not act like a standard xenomorph that
Nope.
exists within the universe that we know of, because
And it
that
gets
ship would have been cocooned. Literally, at the end of the second episode, there are egg sacs
Wait.
sitting in
Let's
the
not
middle of the
go too deep
room.
into this because I think there's a whole episode for this series alone. Um, and let's stay on track with
Okay,
the
I know.
whole audience.
I just want
but
to. There was just from those two episodes. There's things that break the lore of the xenomorph of the alien universe. That is my
True.
problem with what Scott did with Prometheus and the other movie. He tried to do something different that does not work with what was established. If it's an alternate universe, that's perfectly fine. But you can't do this stuff and think it's going to work,
I think
especially
we
with
can establish the fact that Scott is a great world person. He
yes, he
can
is.
show you this beautiful stuff. Sucks at telling a deep story. Somebody else has to write it and shepherd it through. Alien was successful because it had so many parents. And at its core, it had the two creators fighting their butts off to keep the story in line.
Hmm.
Because Walter Hill and Gellier, whatever his name was, they wanted to change it. They didn't like Alien. They didn't want it to be a space. They wanted it to be a story of biological weapons, man made, always wanted to bring it to man. Ripley is always talking about the origins of humans becoming God. Like he's fascinated with
Really.
Frankenstein,
Yeah.
of humans becoming God, creating something that then comes back and destroys them. And he wants to explore the our place in the universe. You can do a little of that in Alien, but that's not what Alien is about. Alien is about first contact with a species that is so beyond us
And hostile.
and hostile and insect like, we can't fight it because humans reproduce at a much slower rate than these things can. And like zombies, these things can turn us into one of them. So they fill their army ranks when every time they kill a human, where humans are limited. We don't get to do that.
We at least need
All
20
right.
years. Just
Yeah.
9 months and 20 years of gestational period to of education, training, and everything else before we can send somebody else out there. Unless we have synthetics that we're going to
Right, which
create and
is where
make.
that comes in.
or
We have
we get
to
or we get
create our
power armor and
armor, and then
Yeah, yeah.
we become
Starship
Starship Troopers.
Troopers.
Yeah.
that's right, yeah. They're
Um,
afraid.
so it's just one of those things that like I even like Romulus, like my problem with that movie and why do you have it to where it's parts of the Nostromo that they just find out in the middle of space that is still there after a nuclear explosion.
Well, see, like Romulus and Earth, right? The one of the most frustrating things about both of those movies is that Romulus starts off with a really interesting idea. It's like, hey, let's take a look at this world from a very different perspective than what we've seen up to this point. It's like, yeah, 100%. Awesome. We're getting to see people like a bunch of wage slaves trapped on a, corporate world,
corporate world. Yeah.
under the thumb of Wayland Utani, and they're trying to, get their way out from underneath the corporate thumb. It's like, yeah, that's a really cool, really interesting perspective to take with this kind of a movie. And then, yeah, you just introduce aliens in because it's Wayland Utani. So, of course, right, they're going to be contending with stuff like that at some point because Wayland Utani's got to be doing experiments or whatever. And then just like, yeah, but then the second half of the movie is like, yeah, but what if we just like do Alien again? Right,
Again. Yeah.
but I'm sorry, literally every Alien movie again, but not as well done,
Well done,
right?
yeah.
And that's the problem. It's like I wish I could know where that process came apart because it's like we started with such a cool, interesting premise. And same thing with Alien Earth. It's like, okay, you have this big question of like, basically Blade Runner-esque of like what makes us human, right? With these synthetic kids and like whether or not they actually transferred the consciousness or if they just imprinted these kids onto a computer, like are they still who they were? Are they not? Right? Like it's a interesting question, and then everything that's written around it at this point is just is just so stupid, and that's so frustrating because it's almost like they became slaves to that concept of marketability. So I don't know if it's the creatives or if it's the studio that stepped in and said, "Okay, hey, you have this really cool, interesting script and yada yada yada, but you know what it needs? It needs a xenomorph, and you just got to slap that thing in there somewhere and run with it and make it work somehow." And like, because if Alien Earth had, if you told me that that was actually some script that they were going to use for like a Blade Runner TV series, but they couldn't get the rights to it, so instead they got the rights to Alien, and that's the way that they ran with it, I would 100% believe that because it's almost the way that that show
Shoot
feels,
feels.
except
Well, here's the thing.
because then they had to like
All of them are
shoehorn
owned
in
by
all the alien
Fox.
stuff at the end.
They're now
Huh?
all owned by
All everything's
Fox, so
everything's
they
all
can
now
do
Fox.
anything they
Disney,
want.
Fox, yeah.
Predator, Blade Runner, Terminator, and Aliens could all be melded into one big universe. But I think the problem is, and I'm gonna go through both series, right? Let's look at Romulus first. Romulus had the problem of having to do an alien movie within the universe, couldn't use weapons more advanced than what already existed. They had to create something that looked like it would come from
The retro
what
future.
we got into the later movies. Where it went wrong was instead of world building, which is what Alien has never done. They've never world built.
Dark Horse Comics. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but they
Outside of the
wrote them
comics.
all out.
I know, I know. Instead of yeah, go ahead.
So we have them trying to do world building with showing a corporate world. So what would have happened in Alien 2 if that terraforming had been successful? Then they would have mined it for everything they could possibly do. So we got to see where that would have eventually led. But we didn't see anything about all the other corporations or how the universe works or how money works or anything. We got a little hint at it. And instead of going and doing a new, like, okay, let's put a space station like what we'd originally been discussed in the script, was it wasn't going to be the refinery and the Nostromo. It was going to be an alien space station that had gone and picked up something else. Or at one point, they hinted that it was going to be Ripley's ship where they had found an egg and then put her back into space because they didn't want her around to explain or ask questions. So they took what they found on her ship and released her back in space. She was going to wander, which explains why she
Just wandered
wanders.
so long and no one detected her. Yeah.
And it played up on the fact that the alien, the drone that first is born, the first one, it has one job: to create a queen and a hive. So its eggs, what it was doing to Cain and I mean not Kane, what it did to Brett and what it was doing to Dallas, those would have been queen face huggers. So that okay, we've got a human that's being cocooned and turned into an egg, which will be the next one will be a queen instead of a drone. Then she's going to infect those face hug queen the face huggers will infect another entity,
Yeah, it would have.
and
Well,
then it
she
will
would.
become a queen.
Yeah, because we know that like Lambert and Ripley and Brett would have been lobotomized, sitting there next to the egg to become the
Yeah,
queen. Because
queen. Yeah,
that's because once it established that there was at least multiple eggs, it would have used the other passengers to do the queens, and it would produce it, and it would just been in this floating egg factory until someone found it and then been
yeah.
able to spread. And what's funny is I was talking to Ryan and Zombie about this, and they're asking like, where did like this stuff originate? I don't think it was him. It was one of the guys we were talking to, and I said, well, it was established. It's been established since like the Dark Horse comics. It was established with Cameron, um, and even with the stuff with the original
It
guys
goes
that
all the way
wrote.
back to the original guys because
Yeah,
remember, these were not on that ship and brought there. There was no friggin' uh, what would he call them? The creators or whatever the hell they were called
yeah,
in
the engineers.
Prometheus. The
Oh yeah,
engineer.
yeah, yeah, the
Yeah.
engineers. Yeah,
These were a ship that had landed on a planet because it had detected something, or they could have been miners or whatever they wanted. And going all the way back to the original script and Alan Dean Foster's adaptation of the script for his novelization, there was a pyramid. When they got to the ship, it was everybody was dead on the ship. There were no eggs on that ship. What they found was that the message was a warning because this previous alien crew had landed there and been wiped out. And they'd been there for a long time. They'd fossilized and were dead and all this other stuff. The problem was once they saw that there was a pyramid on the dashboard of the
which
pilot ship. What would they call them again?
the engineers.
No, 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 no. The thing that they found that had the chest broken out of it.
Oh
The
yeah, the
space
engineer,
jockey.
the
The
space
space
jockey.
jockey.
Yeah.
On his dashboard was where he had scraped in with his fingernail an image of a pyramid with a sun, and they were couldn't figure out what that was, so they went back to the Nostromo, and it was Sulaco in the original. Um, the and they start scanning, and they find what looks like a pyramid on their reading, their scanning. They go there, go through the top of the pyramid, go down into an egg chamber. In this egg chamber is the life. You find out was an ancient race who had evolved because it's all on hieroglyphics, the entire lifespan of their life. They no longer could reproduce naturally on their own, partly because their world was dying. This was not just some moon. This had been a world that has slowly had its atmosphere ripped off. It's being destroyed by gravitational forces, by all the other gas giants around it, and they're dying. It was a dying race. And in this pyramid, they find a sacrificial like uh, table, or I can't lack of better
Alter.
altar. Thank you. And there are eggs all the way around it, and these eggs have been setting there forever. They see places where there were a few that are missing, which explains what happened to the original crew of the other ship. So Kane's down there. He's looking around. He's taking photos. He's telling them, describing what he sees. And then he sees movement in one of them because they activate when there's movement. He goes over, does what Kane did in the original, stuck his freaking face in it. And, he's trying to get a better look at it. And it doesn't just go and open like it did in the movie, it explodes outward. and then it attacked him, got on him. They have to bring him up and take him back to the ship. And then the story is basically the same. The one thing they never explained was the alien eats the crew. It kills people and eats them, but it also can survive by shedding parts of itself and maintaining its ability to survive. But that's why the alien was dying at the end of the original movie. He moved slow. He was dying. He had gone beyond, he created the eggs. He'd gone beyond his limit, and he would be, like all drones, was going to
Going to
die.
die, yeah.
And so you've got um, this really great world that you've built that then Walter Hill and his partner come in and shit all over, and they want to turn it into a corporate thing. It's bioengineering weapons, and because he doesn't understand aliens, he didn't like alien movies, he didn't like sci-fi. And Walter Hill, I love him. He's a great director, a great writer. He's done some fantastic stories, but they're all grounded and nitty gritty and to the earth. And you had Ripley wanting to come in and was like, oh,
Ridley.
okay, I see this. But
Ridley.
still, it was O'Bannon who went, hey, look, here's the guys that I worked with on Tarkovsky's Dune. These are the things. He was the one who hired everybody, who brought in Morbius, who brought in all these artists. He wanted a separate artist to create the human world items. So, and then the one to create the alien world, which would be Geiger and them, so that they looked like they contrasted with each other. They didn't look like they were part of the same world, same species. And they fought and fought, but and kept bringing. At one point, the studio was like, "We got to cut the money. We can't do this anymore. How about instead of us finding a ship or any of this other stuff, when they're walking to the relic, you see the alien embedded in the rock part of it, and that is still film that was filmed, and it's still in one of the uncut scenes where they're walking, where Brett and not Brett, Dallas, Kane, and Lambert are walking towards the relic ship. You see one of the aliens embedded in the rock. And what's funny about Aliens universe, they recycle stuff over and over again into the next movies. Anything that was written in the first one, two, or three that didn't get used, they get moved over into the next one, into the next one, into the next one. And that kind of continued all the way into Romulus, because now we find out that the creature that was supposed to have died at the end of the first movie cocooned itself in a rock and became a fossil and was floating around in space. So they borrowed everything from the previous scripts and recycled them. Romulus was pigeonholed from the beginning because of what they tried to do with it. It should have been a space station, should have been where they had gone and got more of the eggs and been bioengineering them and everything else.
With
Um,
which was the script for the original three, which was going to
yes.
be Bishop and Hicks trying to find Ripley and finding out that the space station, the science team on the space station had got some of the eggs, were genetically engineering them and make them into
Yep.
stuff, which is also kind of what they did in the fourth one, Resurrection.
Yep.
So, but going off of this, because we know we went for a while on that, but
Sorry.
it's okay. No,
That's
no,
why I
no.
said there
Yeah,
needs to be all
you
over
were
a
turning
second.
it into an alien episode.
Yeah,
Dude, we need to do an alien episode.
that definitely need to, especially with Earth,
Yeah.
because
Well,
Earth screwed up right off the bat. Why would you bring them in the past to the Earth
All
and
right,
then
all right.
knowing?
I.
Yeah,
Pause,
Well, hey,
pause.
hey,
yeah.
Like
hold on. Well,
we'll put a pin in it.
yeah, we're gonna put a pin in it because I'll just put this.
Stay tuned. Part two.
When the xenomorph is a side character in its own movie,
Mhm.
that's the problem.
Show.
Like Andor with season two, where he's the side character of his own show. Anyway, but when you have good directors like Lucas and Spielberg, and you have Indiana Jones, you have great sequels, except for they waited too long for after Last Crusade to do another film with Harrison Ford. But we still got great movies, and those are good, not retellings of things, but the adventures of this one character through his journey of life and his impact on history, whether
And
it be known or not.
how much more does that have to do with an actor not wanting to come back to a role? So you delay and delay and delay until he decides, I want to come back. We could have gone on, found somebody else to play Indiana Jones,
Like James Bond.
continued to go on with more stories. But they all said, there's nobody but Harrison who can play Indiana Jones. We're not going to do another one unless he comes back. And in all honesty, at a certain point, they age out of the role.
Well,
James
and so
Bond.
then it
I mean,
becomes, I mean, but
Sean Connery.
with James Bond, right? It goes back to that their fear of struggling with marketability, right? Because like James Bond at this point, it is baked into the character of being and okay, we got a new. It's like the Doctor, right? It's like okay, we got a new generation. We got a new face to the name, and we're good to go. There's only ever been one Indy, right? There's only ever been one Luke, and does that mean that there can't ever not be a new face to those names? No, but they're terrified to death of trying to do that because
Yeah.
they know that again, especially in the climate that we exist in now, right? Like, I mean, I know that depending on who they would pick for some of this stuff, we would probably have something to say about it, right? Depending
Okay.
on the
I
casting. But that's where it kind of comes down to the question of, all right, well, you know what? At some point, guys, IPs get put to bed, right? I mean, if you don't have any good stories that you have left to tell, or if you just have nowhere else to take it, and then it's just it. Hey, like the common response that I see a lot of people throw out whenever people are complaining about like the Alien stuff or the Star Wars stuff ruining the originals, right? It's like, well, you still have the originals. It's like, yeah, we do. It would be cool to see new stuff in some of these universes, new stories being told, or at least, you know, stories from like what y'all are talking about, expanded universe type of stuff get told and be able to be seen on the big screen. That'd be awesome. But at a certain point, right, it's like it's not going to be there, unfortunately. And so until somebody with a vision, somebody with a plan, somebody with, you know, enough clout to slap the studios out of their way can step in and get something like that done. Until then, you just kind of get stuck with these cash grabs, right?
So I was going
I
to
think,
ask, what has
uh,
Colin got to say? Because he did point his
yeah,
finger.
he
I want
didn't
to.
get to,
Yeah, yeah,
he
sorry
wanted to
about
say
that.
something. Yeah.
Star Wars. Mark Hamill, a few months back, came out and said Sebastian Stan would make a great Luke Skywalker if they had to retool it.
Well, they did. He was supposed to be
He
Luke
was supposed to
Skywalker.
be Luke
Yeah,
Skywalker
That
going
guy
forward with
Kennedy
a.
killed that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they had that whole retrofitted scene where in was it Mandalorian and where Luke came up and got Grogu.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that de
that was
aging
proof of concept
technology.
for me. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
that was proof of concept that they you could go back and figure that out.
But that goes back to that whole thing what we were talking about too, with
Would you
not
want to?
the proper handling of a sequel or a franchise to go forward, right? We mentioned it with Aliens and how the fact that like they couldn't figure out where they wanted to go. So right now, instead of doing stories to progress things further in the future with not retconning or changing anything that breaks the original trilogy, they keep doing things in the past that breaks things in the original trilogy or the original two movies because three was good, but it wasn't great, and what it brought to the table really kind of sucked. I mean, and we'll get to that too because that's a whole other thing. But think about yeah, Star Wars. We're talking about Indiana Jones, Back to the Future. You know, that was a thing on its own. But even with that, it goes back to the whole thing of like it's almost a retelling every time with differences of like the tonal things of what's going on, right? Mainly, it's Marty trying to stop something from happening either in the past or the future, and in it messing up his future or past.
I think there's the difference between formulaic, where they want to stay to the same formula all the way through the film, and not understanding you don't have to do that. All you have to do is keep the core principles that you set up in your world building, and then you can tell anything you want. But you run into a problem when you have, like, Alien is not about Ripley. It never should have
Yeah.
been about Ripley. She should have had a story told in it, but it's really about the species and what happens when humans and other things encounter it, and how it's a greater danger to the overall society and universe. Same thing with the Predator. Same thing with Jaws.
Same
Quit
thing with
making it
Terminator. You can do stories
Terminator.
that don't
Quit
have to do with
making
the
it about
Connors.
the person, and then make it about, because we could have shifted to the future war. We could have shifted to anything that happened after the war, after the bombs dropped, because there were so many stories that could be told. Till you get to that point where you want to tell John Connor's final story, where he brings down Skynet.
Skynet. Yeah.
Well, it's funny
And,
because technically of those ones you just rattled off, Predator is the one that's done the best job of doing that
yep.
because Arnie is only in the first one, right?
Correct.
Like he wasn't in the second one, he wasn't in the third one, he
And
wasn't in like
well,
it
he was almost
that
in the second. He was almost in the second one.
yeah, but he wasn't. That's
I
my
know. I
like
know.
he was it was all Glover, right?
It was Danny Glover. Yes.
I mean, like, so, but is Predator as big as Alien? Is it as big as Terminator? Is it as big as those other franchises? And is part of the reason why maybe it's not quite to that because you don't have a human face to the franchise that can get trotted out every so often? You know, they just like blow the mothballs off of Sigourney Weaver and like run her out there real quick just so that they can put a face on the on it to get it done, or you know, or
I
because of Ridley Scott, right? Like the whole reason why the Alien, like Prometheus and all that was big is because it's like, oh, Ridley Scott's back and he's going to be doing it. It's like, okay, awesome. There's a big recognizable name that you could attach to it, and it's like, okay,
well,
yeah, I really like the Alien part of this, but I know that name and I know a lot of stuff that name's done good. So yeah, I'm gonna come to this movie for that. Not so much the Xenomorphs, but because Ridley Scott's coming back to the Xenomorphs. And well, that didn't turn out so well, but
No.
there was a
now,
dream.
and the fact and what he did to Blumenkamp, because Blumenkamp had created a
Blomkamp.
story.
Yeah.
Blumenkamp
Yeah.
created a story that was going to carry it and would have been a trilogy, which would have gone back and fixed and put the Alien franchise on a good footing. And Ridley Scott's ego could not handle that somebody would come in and fix his franchise that he helped break. He has to have his stamp on it. I
Yeah,
love you,
we
Scott.
almost
I love
had
you, Scott.
Alien 5 with Michael Biehn, Sigourney Weaver, Lance Hendrickson, and the person who played Newt. I can't remember, Rebecca something. Uh, and going to which was the storyline that we got. If anybody read the Dark Horse comics of them going back to the alien homeworld and finding all of that stuff and trying to stop them at the source. But think about Turtles, right? Turtles was a great movie, the first 1990s movie. And then the second one was decent, but it was because of the blowback from parents, so like it was too violent. You know, they hardly even used their weapons in the second movie. And then
Oh,
it got
Ninja Go, Ninja Go.
then
Come
it
on.
And
got
and
then
we
it
No,
got Vanilla
no.
Ice.
we
It
got Vanilla Ice.
died when Vanilla Ice started singing, and when you
Right.
had to have
Classic.
Shredder turn
Greatest moment.
into this
Greatest moment ever.
giant, massive
Super Shredder, Super
super
Shredder,
Shredder.
and
Get
Ace.
out of here.
I don't know if this is structurally sound, but like he breaks enough of the pillars and he just gets crushed, and it's like, oh wow. So we didn't even get to see him fight them, and I was like, come on, that was a weak point. But it was even worse with three because I liked the idea of the story because that was very much reminiscent of the original Mirage comic, but it was there was a lot of talking going on in that movie. There wasn't enough action going on, and you got Casey back, and all he was a babysitter.
Babysitter, which killed me.
And then like
Babysitter character.
his ancestors just like
Sorry about that.
weak.
I couldn't tolerate all the bullshit about Vanilla Ice, and it just had needed a drink.
Yeah, no, I know.
What are you talking about, man? One of the great
No,
artists of our
no,
time.
no, no, no. Do not make my ears bleed again, sir.
What? Man, did you see him in
Um,
Surreal Life with Tammy Faye Baker and
Yes,
Ron
I.
Jeremy? It
You
was
know what?
fantastic.
He deserved his
Man,
place in that sun, but that was it.
national treasure, I say.
National treasure, you say? Tammy Faye Baker, huh?
Everybody on the podcast
And
who's
Ron
watching this,
Jeremy.
consider
cringe.
yourself triggered.
That
Um,
there is absolutely no space for nothing in that whatsoever.
but
Wow.
this is that
Whew.
thing of like, from what we know from the stuff with the making of the original TMNT movie, we almost never got it.
Right.
And it was in the process of being made well before the original cartoon aired. So it was supposed to be something different. And you look at how amazing that film is with like the direction, the acting, the tonal setting of it, it
Practical effects.
practical effects, Jim Henson and all that stuff. And then we got a sequel to it, which was very much just the cartoon. But even in the cartoon, we had them fighting with their weapons, but they can't have their weapons fighting against humans. But like it's such a missed opportunity that like this series didn't get to extend its legs in the direction it should have. Because like you think about what Michael Bay did to the series, which is awful.
Oh, he
I
wanted them to be aliens. This goes back to understanding the core material,
Mhm.
understanding what makes them great. You know what? There was enough Mirage comics and stories and other things you could have borrowed and used those to build out a movie and a franchise that kept going. We could be right now watching
Turtles 10,
well, yeah,
17.
or what's it, Michelangelo running around fighting
Oh yeah,
in
The Last
Last
Ronin.
Last
Ronin
Ronin.
Yeah,
Is in
because
development.
it is in
it was
development though.
there, but they don't. They're afraid of taking. You know, it's like Kennedy did not want to take any of the expanded universe material, which was like David said, other stories, much wider universe. We didn't just follow Luke and Han in them. We followed Wedge. We followed all these different
I am
characters and
I
things.
am reliably told none of that exists.
Well,
I believe there were multiple interviews done with certain people that were in charge of that franchise that said that they didn't have a bunch of
Oh,
yeah, they
don't
had
don't repeat
yeah,
your
stories.
words.
like other
Don't
yeah,
repeat your words.
like
Don't
other
speak
And
the
other
deep.
movies, we don't have any source material to work with, so we're making it up as we
None.
go. Oh my God,
Yeah,
that
it was a
lady.
struggle, man. I don't know what y'all's
Oh,
problem is. It was difficult. It was hard. It was hard work for them to get those all that garbage out there.
I think a sequel,
That is
going back to our question, a sequel owes it to the audience and the fans who made it as great as it was,
the made the
made the
money to make
studios
the
money
sequel.
for them. They owe it to the fans to be true to its core, but interesting and new enough to bring in new audiences and future generations to if you want to extend the life of something, you have to be true to the core,
Mhm.
make it interesting for the people now and for the younger kids that are going to come in and watch this and want to follow it and see it go into their direction. And that is not what happens in Hollywood now. That is
No.
not what happens. And that's why we don't get how many sequels have we gotten lately? All we get
Uh,
are reboots and
John
yeah, we're getting
remakes
reboots.
and
John Wick.
Oh,
We at
We
least
got
got
the
four movies.
Wicks.
I'm
We got
Those were
sorry.
Moana
great. Those were
2.
great. We did get
We
Moana
got
too.
Frozen 2.
I
We
don't care
got
about
like
Frozen.
Toy Story 30 coming up.
yeah, okay, yeah.
all right.
Uh,
Same
I,
story, same song, different verse.
all right. I want to flip the coin on this one for a minute.
okay.
Okay, we're all talking about these great cinematic adventures that can be make or break with the sequels. Let's go with the topic of what Vince and I grew up with. The stuff that started off as schlock, you knew it was crap, and they kept putting on more of it, and you
And it
loved
was
it anyway.
great. It was great.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yes.
Garbage from the beginning, garbage through all 5 sequels, and damn it, I'm there for all of it.
I mean, but the pro like I mean, we've kind of talked about this on other episodes, right? It's like that slice of type of movie is
It's
such a
niche.
niche
It,
Yeah.
that you can't that the money that what used to fuel all that doesn't exist anymore,
no
right?
videos,
Now,
rentals,
yeah.
Kickstarter.
and digital
Yeah, well
copy
that's what I
and
was about to
buying.
say. Now you actually have to go out there and kickstart something, but whenever you go and you're asking people, "Hey, I need X amount of money to go do this,"
Hmm.
what happens now when you run over budget, right? Because
Yeah.
like you don't
You add
have you
another
don't
tier.
I like you don't have at least not that I'm aware of, you don't have a Roger Corman that's out there that just like understands how this works and is just
It
like,
just
"All right,
throws money
guys,
at it.
we got
No, he doesn't.
here's
No, Roger Corman
here's
didn't
an
throw
idea."
money. He had a
No.
budget,
No, he
and
had
he
a
And
stuck
budget
he
to
and he
that
would
stayed in
do
budget.
budget.
everything he could.
Yeah,
Yes, he was staying
yeah,
within that budget.
And he knew how to market, right? Like that was
yep.
his whole thing. He's like, yeah, I know how to make schlocky movies for dirt cheap, but by God, I'm gonna make money on them, right? But
What
that was
Right?
also the video market.
what Corman did, which was fantastic, was he would go, okay, I'm making this movie and I don't have enough money. If I can't find a partner to help me front this or a distribution studio to help me front it, I'm going to go out and buy a pre-existing movie that's not been released here in the US. I'm going to go in and dub it with an all-new audience and remarket it for US, put it out where it doesn't cost me any money, and anything I make from it, I can funnel into other movies
Movies he wants to
that may
make.
be stalled
Yeah.
or I can't
Mhm.
finish right now. Man,
Yeah. He
he
was
is
Ed
an
Wood with a
interesting
budget.
person to watch. Go back and look at his interviews, and there are lots of documentaries on him, and watch what he had to do and how influential he was to the film industry. Because the people that came through his pipeline of movie making went off to be the greats.
I mean, that's why we
Exactly.
have Cameron, right? Cameron
Yep.
came through the school of
Yeah.
Corman.
Yep.
Well,
So
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 did Dante. Who was what's his name? The guy who did Gremlins, Joe
Joe Dante
Dante.
thing. Yeah.
And then who was the other one who did the werewolf movies? All these guys started with him and then went out. I mean, he had John Milius was part of his
yeah.
group. He had all these other people. I mean,
Well,
we owe a
here's something.
lot to Roger Corman.
Here's something else because the guys that did the both Guyver movies, even though the first one isn't as good, but the sequel is better. And that's one of the things too, is like how a sequel can be better.
Yes.
And on top of that, what's great is, and I just found out about this, is that there is a fan movie that called Guyver Midnight.
Yeah.
That's like I think it's a 30 or 45 minute long movie. And then there's a new one that they're kickstarting right now to make a full-fledged new Guyver movie. And what's cool about the
I thought
Midnight,
that there was an actual production of a Guyver movie being made in Japan right now.
no, it's a lot of the original guys that did the first two movies are making a new one. Like so the Guyver Midnight thing is actually like set in Japan and you see Sho, Mizuki and Tetsuro and it's like a basically like the first episode of the original anime. And you got the guys in the Kronos armor. I mean the it looks awesome.
So
Um
let me to kind of bring us back on because we still wanted to do something else. Um, we talked that let's touch on that real quick. Movies that the sequel actually built the franchise instead of the first one.
Okay.
Um, can we give some examples of that and where we thought that the sequel actually carried it over?
I mean, I think we kind of touched on in the beginning, right? Like, I mean, that's where Evil Dead would definitely be
yeah,
one of
definitely
those.
be able to
Yeah.
fit in that. Um I mean, if you think about it, Terminator 2 defined
Yeah.
what was because the original movie was just it was a
It was an establishing movie, but it was lower budget.
budget, right?
Terminator 2 came in and solidified it and reestablished itself.
It redefined what was going on with the original movie.
Exactly.
Because there was a lot of the deleted scenes that we never saw that actually made the movie more connected to the sequel than what we got.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, it's a slasher movie. You know, this guy. I mean, even though it's what we've had tons of these B movies back then that were like, oh, it's a robot shopping mall. It's My Deadly Friend. It's like this robot going to kill people. But Terminator was a stand of its own. I mean, 84. You know, it was such a impactful movie, but two defined it. to took it to a whole nother level. Whether the sequels after that were great, which they weren't, other than Salvation, that's a whole different matter. But like I'm trying to think of something that fits into that
Superman
category.
2.
Star Trek. The first movie was very cerebral. It was good
Yeah, a lot of
if you're
people
a
liked
big
it. Yeah, they
fan of
like it.
Roddenberry. But friggin' Khan, Wrath of Khan
Yes.
changed it to a submarine battle, underwater but in space. You know, you can go look at that movie and go back and look at all the World War II movies where two submarines were fighting, or a ship and a submarine were fighting. That final end, that the final battle at the end, that
That
was
was like Hunt for
straight
Red
out of,
October.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, but Hunt for Red October came out after it. So
Yeah, but it was
yeah, but I
still
know, yeah, it's in that same vein. Um, what are some others?
Superman 2. As great
Superman too. Yeah.
as great as Superman was, and it helped establish, and it just made us believe a man could fly. When they brought out Superman 2 with General Zod, that was a game changer.
Yeah, but you got Richard Donner filmed most of that.
Yeah, but thing is,
And there's a whole thing there that, you know,
the General Zod thing
we didn't
changed the
have
course
the
of Superman.
we didn't have the he didn't end the first Superman movie with when he was fired. He from the production, they stuck the ending of what was supposed to be Superman 2 onto the end of Superman 1, where we have the whole time reversing
Right.
time,
Which
you know.
does not work. We've established this conversation.
Yeah.
You does not matter
So
how fast you can change the world backwards. Does not change time like that. I can't. I love that movie, but I can't. That part right there just breaks everything. It's just like no.
yeah, it's just like it's an incomplete first one is an incomplete movie because it was not finished. I mean, it was really he filmed them back to back, and then they brought in the other director to come back in and refilm scenes, and he added like stupid stuff like Superman can pull his shield off his chest and throw it, and
Was that Richard
all,
Lester?
yeah, I think it was Lester. Yeah,
Because they brought him in for the third one.
third one. Yeah, which you know what? At the time, I love Richard Pryor, and I was like,
Yeah,
this isn't Superman. This is a Richard Pryor movie guest starring Superman. That's how I had to view it. You know.
which is entirely fair.
I
Uh,
can't. I can't think of
Ma-
anything at the
But
moment.
it's
Mad Max
Oh
completely
Yes,
yeah,
Mad
changed,
Max,
Road
Mad
like
Max,
Warriors.
yeah.
redefined
Yeah,
itself.
yeah,
yes.
Road Warriors is generally the first movie most people think of when they think of the Mad Max series.
Right. Okay. What about Empire Strikes Back? Some would argue that did because the fact of how deep that the story got. I don't know. I'm on the fence about it, but I think
I mean, it's
yes,
definitely the superior movie,
It's the spirit
Yeah,
right?
it
movie.
is
I
a
mean,
superior
Definitely
movie,
superior
and
movie.
it was one of those that gave you a cliffhanger ending,
yeah, and
which
it
was
was and it gave you that iconic moment of "I am your father,"
Hmm.
which we almost didn't get.
Yeah,
That was a last minute kind of thing. I think the first movie was really kind of like a hero's journey. It could be like
yeah,
uh, what was
like a space version of Lord of the Rings for me.
well, I was thinking more of what was the movie where Jason? No, it wasn't Perseus, and where he fought the Medusa.
Oh,
Clash of the Titans. No,
Clash
Clash
of
of
the
the
Clash of the
Titans.
Titans.
Yeah,
Titans.
it's
Yeah,
kind of that kind of a feel. You have the mentor and all that other stuff, and um, I just recently watched something that really blew my mind. If you think about why Obi-Wan sacrificed himself at the end, it really wasn't because he was gonna, he had passed this on to Luke. It was because if you go back and you watch the prequels and everything else that's ever happened now, he saw the two children reunited, brother and sister. We
yeah.
might not have known it, but Obi-Wan, when he looked over and saw Luke and Leia together,
Hmm.
he'd accomplished what he had set out to do, and he
Do. Yep.
knew
Right.
he
And
could do more for them as in the Force than he could ever do anymore.
not to
Because I
mention
think
it was
he
a
could have
distraction.
actually, yeah, I think he could have kicked. I honestly, I think he could have kicked
Yeah,
Vader's
that
butt.
that that fight could have gone way differently.
Actually, we know that he could because the Obi-Wan TV show gave us him kicking Vader's butt.
Kicking butt, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So here's one like Tron and Tron Legacy. I think Tron Legacy is visually, story-wise, was the better movie than the original Tron. Because you look at
But if
like
without the first one, we never would have had it.
I know
But
without
I
the first
hate
one,
taking away from the original for a second one. That kind of goes against what I was saying. But I agree with you. Superior movie. But if we hadn't gotten that first one, that groundbreaking first one, we never would have
Exactly.
gotten that second one.
And now we've got Ares coming.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that.
I'll watch it because I'm a fan of the whole
Yeah.
Well,
thing.
I
But
want Tron in it. I mean, I eventually want the character of Tron in his title movie. Like
Yeah.
we got and Bruce Boxleitner to come back to to play the role, even though he's much older now.
Well, we
Um,
know that we can do de-aging.
but
And
we don't have David Warner's gone, so we can't
yeah,
have him
that's
back
sad.
as Sark or
with AI and all
I
this
know,
wonderful,
I know, but we need
you
to
can,
get. I want
it's
Sam. I want the same
digitized
actor who
world.
played
You can put
Sam.
him in there.
I want the same actor who played Sam to come back.
I just don't know
That's
why
fair.
they're putting it in.
Wasn't that Sam Worthington?
It's kind of like
No,
the
that's from
Alien
Avatar.
Earth
The
for
guy from
me.
Avatar.
The whole Alien Earth thing for me. Why are we on Earth? Why are they taking it out of the Tron universe and making it majority of it takes place in? I know it's cheaper because you put it in real world, they're doing it that way, but there's still much more we need to explore
Here,
in the virtual
in
reality.
universe. Yeah.
here's one for the horror fans, since we're getting close to October. Waxworks 2 is better than Waxworks 1.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
100% better.
All right. Let's
It has
take
Bruce Campbell in it too, so that gives it that extra plus.
All right, let's run with that for a minute. Coming into the October thing, let's talk about all the classic characters for a minute. Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, Wolfman, all that stuff. All the various there's been movies after movies with different actors as the same character, and you can only tell the story so many times, and it's been redone and redone and redone. Where are we on that? I mean, it's not like Dracula is James Bond. I mean, it's like Bela Lugosi did it wonderfully, and they had to keep the Dracula story alive, so they brought in like Karloff, and they brought all this other guys in.
Lon Chaney Jr. played him as son of Dracula, but he was really
Right.
Dracula. Yeah, I mean,
well, I mean,
you know what bothers me about that? I love the classic monsters, and we saw
Exactly.
We saw the Wolfman redone, fantastic with
Benicio del Toro. Yeah, that was good.
But then we get this crappy Wolfman from Bloom. What is it?
Blumhouse.
Bloomhouse, which just I wanted to just strangle somebody when I got to the end of that friggin' movie.
You almost turned into the Wolfman and started strangling
Yeah,
people?
I would have
Exactly.
hunted him down.
I'll
and
even
it makes
go
me
as
wonder how you're going to do a decent movie for, because the dark part of the Marvel universe is coming, and we're going to see actually get a Werewolf by Night, and which is basically going to be the Wolfman.
right.
And I'm just like, I was really looking forward to the Dark Universe. I really thought they had a chance with it, especially after that and after Dracula Unbound. Those were really good retelling and bringing them into the modern universe. I still think they should be period. I don't think you want them running around because we got Blade and all those that are telling vampire stories in the modern world. I wanted that classic world.
Okay. Let's
Okay, so
let me pause that real quick there.
Okay.
Blade. Turns out that the Blade movie with Marshall Ali was not supposed to be current. It was supposed to be a period piece.
In the 70s. It was supposed to be in the 70s.
No. Older. because when they abandoned the project, all of those, the entire set, the wardrobe, everything went where?
To Sinners.
The
Sinners.
Sinners. Yep. Yeah,
Because
I know
that was all supposed to be for Blade. And Michael B.
Wow.
Jordan and the guys came in and they said, we'll take the lot. And they made Sinners with it. And Sinners, fantastic movie, fantastic way
Fantastic.
to.
I don't think it's like groundbreaking like they say, but I've really enjoyed it.
Oh
I like
no,
the
that
ending and everything.
it's
Well,
it's a great. It was a great addition to the ethos of it all. Not, it wasn't like, okay, this is going to be, remembered in the movie Hall of Fame for the rest of it, but it's going to be remembered solidly as a great movie. But the impetus of everything that they took from that was literally said, okay, we're going to take all of this stuff from Blade that was never used, and here's our settings, here's our wardrobe, here's our timepiece, the whole thing. And I that makes me feel sad, because that means that somebody had the right idea of doing Blade the way it should have been
should have
done.
been. Yeah.
So
And we got
I don't
Sinners
wanna
though,
see-
so I'm not complaining.
I don't want to see Blade in a pre-World War. I mean, it was after World War II, because Sinners is World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right after
So,
World War II.
all right, we're wrapping up, guys. So I want to do one last question, and just give an answer. What movie do you feel deserved a sequel that never got one? And I'll tell you mine, The Rocketeer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on board with that.
So each of y'all give an answer, and then we'll wrap up the episode.
All right. For me, the Keanu Reeves John Constantine movie. Or Constantine
And
movie.
hopefully it's going to get.
Hopefully it'll happen.
There's been rumors, but that's another time, another thing. That for me. David?
Man, yeah, it's hard to think of, because like it's one of those things where it's like if a movie didn't get a sequel most of the time, I just kind of make my peace with it and move on, so I don't really think about it a ton. Um, but you know what? Carl Urban's Dread, right?
Thank you.
Thank
Read my
you.
mind. Read my mind. Yes.
Like, yeah. Whether it was another movie, whether we got a show, whether we got an anime, like whatever, right? To see a continuation of the character done so right by a dude who, you know, just nailed the part would have been sweet.
Man, I can't wait. He looks so great as Johnny Cage.
I know.
Man, I'm just so.
He's the only
hyped for that.
great thing about that trailer. I'm sorry. Everything
And
else, I don't understand why Jade's bald, and we'll leave it at that. But all right.
I mean, in fairness, they kind of ruined that universe to start with the first movie, with
Well, the
like
first
their
movie. I'm
powers,
hoping that
their
this-
powers being like the weird tattoo thing and
Yeah.
like
No,
all the rest of that
it was
nonsense.
it,
like,
it was plot. The main character was plot armor. He didn't even exist
Literally.
in the games. And on top of that, now there is going to be a Mortal Kombat tournament in your Mortal Kombat movie. I feel like
Yeah.
Ian Malcolm when I was watching that movie.
I mean, look, the best thing about that entire movie is that Sub-Zero is an absolute hoss, right?
Yes,
He is.
Scorpion and
he is
Sub-Zero
so-
are great. But
He is so good.
Yeah.
Well, Scorpion gets turned in, like, kind of gets slapped around pretty hard.
he does.
Whereas Sub-Zero is just like soloing the entire Mortal Kombat universe in that movie. Like,
Yeah.
good God. But anyway,
He got
sorry.
slapped so hard you thought Will Smith was in the movie.
I think the mistake was that they went straight to the combat part of it instead of focusing on each one of the characters as a
On the mortal part of
movie.
it.
yeah.
You introduce them and let them have a story, and then at the end you bring them. Raiden picks them up and takes them, and you can do that for like 4 or 5 movies, guaranteed an audience. Then you do the big. Okay, now we're gonna go to the outworld and we're gonna have the first tournament or whatever.
Right.
They had to create a Mortal Kombat movie without Mortal Kombat. And that just didn't make any sense to me. I mean, so much potential. And
yeah,
just kinda
it
let
is. All right, Dad. So what's yours? And we can wrap up the episode.
God, I don't know.
Can I suggest one that I think you'll agree with?
I got one too. I could suggest to you that I think you would
John
agree
Carter.
Oh, we hadn't said that. Yes.
Okay.
with.
Yes, that okay.
Because you and I talked about it.
Was gonna say The Thing because we never got a real sequel to The
Right.
Thing.
Right.
Which he was working.
But-
He was going to work on.
I
Carpenter
know.
was going to do.
But I really, John Carter, if anything, it has to be John Carter because I saw and read the script for the second film, and
And we talked about it, and
I
that would have
was
been
like,
wonderful.
good man, why are we not? Because it could have easily gone three movies and still only covered the first book and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
My movie that I would suggest to you, Dad, would be The Nice Guys 2. I would love to see friggin' Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling back together again
That could
in
yes,
a
happen
movie.
still.
I really would like that. But
That could happen still.
Russell Crowe is a little bit big now,
Now,
and I
yeah.
just don't want to see him running around trying to catch his breath. You know, it would be like me starring in and Lethal Weapon
Well,
or
you did hear that the Tarantino, I think, is going to make another movie with Brad Pitt's character from Once Upon a
Yes.
Time in Hollywood.
yes.
I am totally down.
Yes.
I am totally down. He
He's
was the
coming
best
out of
character.
retirement for that movie.
Oh my gosh.
I read that and I'm like, okay, I'm on board. Let's go with that series.
So
So-
what serial killer are they going to go after next? That's what I want to know.
So wait, so
Doesn't even have
the
to be a
next
serial
remember,
killer.
it's an alternative
Yeah,
time.
well, no timeline. Yeah.
So
hold on,
who-
so
who
wait,
is-
is he doing a movie after his last movie? Is that
Okay.
what he's announced? Because I thought the next movie that he's doing is supposed to be his like last.
No, he's
When
already
that-
that's supposedly
Yeah, he's
that's
already
done.
he did just
Oh,
kind
he's
of
already
leaked.
walked that back.
Yeah.
They just announced
No,
this was announced a
I
couple weeks
heard
ago.
he was. I heard that he is still working on his
His final
opus
yes.
movie.
Yeah.
But I did hear he's on a couple of different interviews. He's like, maybe I'm not finished. Maybe I'm ready to come back and do some things. That's him. That's going to be, he will be making movies until he dies.
He's the Gene
He just
Simmons of
needs to
filmmaking.
step back, get out of the way for a little bit, work on something, and he's going to come back. Sad part is we lost Michael Madsen.
Yes.
He's been in every film he's ever
We're
made.
done.
It's
Mhm.
just pretty much every film. I'm like, I don't know if I could see a
But I want Kurt
Tarantino
Russell.
movie without him.
I want Kurt Russell and I want Samuel L. Jackson to be in this movie with Brad Pitt. Whatever it is, I want those
Whatever
two.
it is, yes.
Yeah, I want those two actors in this movie somehow, some way.
Yeah, and because
And you know what? I would
there
totally.
aren't that many
I want.
guys left.
I
if you
totally
go back
want.
and look at it.
I want DiCaprio to be back in the movie as well. Just
I'll
like
even
even
take
like a phone
Travolta.
call. Like
So who was president when
After
The-
the Manson,
Helter
The Manson-
Helter the
the
Manson?
Manson family?
wasn't that
Yeah.
Nixon?
I think it was Nixon, wasn't it?
Because that was like right at the end of the whole Vietnam thing. Also,
Yeah.
so I think it was Nixon.
So I'm trying to think what were world events that he could dink with.
Well, you're looking at this. This was what 70s? So you'd be in
well,
the 80s.
Well, 68 to 70 is basically that
Yeah.
whole.
So,
So-
I mean, if you got to have it to where it revolves around some kind of serial killer, just to keep that whole trend. And I'm thinking,
Okay, Son of Sam would be the next one.
Yeah.
That's the other.
And then
That's the other
Ted
side of the
Bundy came
country,
along.
though.
That thing is,
he could be flying over there.
Oh,
to be
you know
for a
what
movie
I
set.
think they should do?
Could be
They should
working on a
have
movie
him
in
go
New
to.
York.
He should go to Italy and be doing a spaghetti western again. He's coming out of
Fellini!
retirement, and then they get involved in whatever a kind of a serial killer group that's out of the country. Kind of changed it from America, but put him somewhere over there. I don't know.
Oh, would he go? Would he go to the Jones commune?
Oh,
down in
that
South
would be
America?
there you go.
great.
Yeah, yeah,
That would
there
be
you go.
yes,
great.
that would have been one of the next ones.
Yeah.
They were,
And have
they
them
were on
actually
location.
make it where that they in the altercation it accidentally gets dumped into the plate that it wasn't supposed to happen.
It wasn't supposed to happen. Or no,
And-
or-
DiCaprio
or-
would have been
or
on,
it only
on
gets
site.
dumped, it only gets
research.
dumped into his cup. Everybody else survives. Like he drinks the Kool-Aid. They're all drink their Kool-Aid, but he's the only one who actually got the poison.
He spits it out. Said, "What the hell?" And then
Well, not
Pete
Brad
said-
Pitt's
and then
character, but
Pete
So wait,
said
would
his
you have
death with
Kurt
a
Russell be
tire.
Jim Jones? Is that where we're
Oh,
going? Is Kurt
dude.
Russell going to be Jim Jones?
I
No,
could
Michael
see- I
Michael
could see-
Madsen would have been freaking.
No, you know what?
Michael
You know
Madsen
what?
was aesthetic
That
license.
would have been.
you get
that would have been
You can
brilliant.
get Bruce Campbell to do it. We'll just get knock it out of the
Dude,
park. We'll just
he
get Bruce Campbell.
would.
Bruce Campbell.
Bruce Campbell would absolutely own that.
That'd be kind of horrifying,
You know what?
man.
I'm sorry. Now that I think about it, that was such a great movie. I don't want them to mess it up with a sequel that might not work.
I
You
think it'll
know,
work though. I think it'll work. I just they
If
gotta
if you
if
have
the
to
script
have the
is right.
if the script is right,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where Chris Evans said, if I had to come back as Captain America, it would have to be exactly right.
I mean, just think about that ending though. That ending in the little house with the
Yeah.
fight and the flamethrower. How do you top that?
I hey, I mean
It takes the right situation. That's all.
Yeah.
The
Like I
right
said,
vision, man. You just
Yeah.
gotta have the right vision
And right
for it.
now, somebody's watching this later on after we're done, going, "There's the answer," and screaming the answer
Yeah,
Well,
at
yeah,
since
us.
we're
he's so big on Asian films, how about Bruce Lee gets killed and they go to Japan to figure out who killed him and what was going on, and they
it'd be
uncover this big,
it would
huge
be
Wait,
conspiracy.
why
it
would
would
they
be
go to
Yeah,
Japan?
it
And
would
wait,
be
wait, wait,
China.
yeah,
wait, wait,
because it was only a
wait,
couple of
It
years
would
after
be in
that.
China.
and China.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And well, they filmed a lot of
Wow.
stuff in Vietnam and
Wow.
other places too.
No,
But
I know. The Shaw brothers did film in other locations.
The
So
Shaw
yes.
brothers.
and but
Oh,
when you get there, you find out that Bruce didn't die. He faked his death, and he's a big villain, and they've got to fight him.
Or he's an old man in a retirement home.
hey, you know what?
Oh
That's
no! Don't you do it? There's another sequel that
no,
needs to
that's
Yes,
be
like a
made.
'90s
We
movie.
never got the
Bubba
freaking
Hotep
Bubba
versus
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu. Yeah.
Nosferatu.
They could still do it. I'm telling you, they could still do it. But all right, guys. This is definitely a fun episode. Thank you for coming out and let us know down below what your favorite sequel is. And if you have anything to input on this conversation, let us know. Maybe we'll come back to this topic another time.
Yeah.
But
Also, let us know what sequels you hate the most.
oh yeah, there
That was
you
a
go.
good question too.
That is a good
Okay,
question.
and I guess we got to get one more in there, right? Of the last question
trifecta
that we asked
question.
of. Yeah, the trifecta question would be what movie didn't get a sequel that should have
Yes,
that
there
we
you
missed.
go. That we missed, yeah. But until then, everyone, have a wonderful night, and we'll catch you next episode. Peace.
Deuces.
Peace. Good night, everybody.